Hello, I am Lakshmi, your AI avatar narrator. I'll be guiding you through today's journey with clarity and insight. Let's begin.
Macbeth, a Sherlock Holmes investigation, Chapter 2, The Blood-Stained Captain. The morning air was heavy with the smell of iron and damp earth. Holmes and I found ourselves transported to a battlefield that had only just quieted. The clash of arms had faded, but its echoes still lingered in the cries of the wounded. We stood unseen, like specters, while the scene unfolded before us. King Duncan sat with his nobles, his face lined with anxiety. Into his presence staggered a soldier, pale and bleeding, his garments clinging to him with dark patches of blood. He spoke haltingly, telling of Macbeth's valor against the traitorous MacDonald. Holmes's keen eyes fixed upon the man. "Observe, Watson," he whispered. "The captain's wounds are not merely tokens of physical battle. They are symbols of truth dearly purchased. Shakespeare often lets truth enter upon the stage bleeding, to remind us that honest testimony requires sacrifice. This man's blood is not only from war, but a seal that authenticates his words." I confess I had never thought of it so. "But Holmes," I said softly, "is it not simply that he is wounded from battle?" Holmes smiled faintly. "My dear fellow, literature has never been content with the surface. Blood here is both literal and allegorical. It foreshadows the river of blood that will flow when ambition, once tasted, cannot be satisfied. The captain's body is thus the first page of Macbeth's tale, written not in ink, but in crimson." King Duncan listened intently as the captain, between gasps of pain, described Macbeth carving out his passage with relentless courage until he unseamed MacDonald from navel to jaw. Holmes's face grew grave. "Note that phrase, Watson, unseamed. It suggests not only the act of violence, but also the opening of a garment. The metaphorical garment is the body politic itself. Macbeth, in slaying treachery, has also cut the seams that hold order together."
Shakespeare often uses clothing imagery, garments of honor, robes of kingship. Already the seam is torn. I scribbled hurriedly in my notebook, for Holmes' insights flew faster than arrows. Soon another messenger, Ross, entered and told of Macbeth's further triumph over the Norwegian king. Duncan, delighted, resolved to grant Macbeth the title of Thane of Cawdor. Holmes' eyes flashed. Here is irony in its purest form. Duncan speaks of rewarding loyalty, while unwittingly sowing the seeds of betrayal. Cawdor, a traitor, passes his mantle to Macbeth, who will in turn betray Duncan. The title itself is cursed, yet Duncan, blinded by gratitude, bestows it as though it were a crown of roses. I asked Holmes, "Are you suggesting the play itself is structured as a chain of ironies?" "Precisely. Shakespeare is a master of what in our investigations we might call the clue that condemns. The very honor that Macbeth receives is the poison that shall undo him. It is like giving arsenic wrapped in a metal. Tell me, Watson, how many of our own cases have hinged upon a gift that carried hidden peril?" I recalled the case of the carbuncle, and that curious affair of the poisoned snuff. Holmes was right, the parallel was undeniable. As Duncan praised Macbeth, Holmes shook his head. "Poor king. He is good, but he lacks discernment. In literature as in life, the innocent often fall not to open enemies but to misplaced trust. Duncan is like one who leaves his door unlocked in a dangerous quarter of London." The scene closed with Duncan's declaration, "What he hath lost, noble Macbeth hath won." Holmes folded his arms. That line, Watson, is a chiasmus mirrored words. It is as though fate itself is speaking, declaring the balance of gain and loss. But within such symmetry lies tragedy, for what seems won is already lost in spirit. Shakespeare whispers to us that the moral account books are never balanced by fortune alone. We drifted from the royal tent, leaving the wounded captain to his physicians. Holmes was silent for some minutes, gazing out at the mist that hovered over the battlefield. At last he said, "Mark it well, Watson, blood, honor, and iron. These are the three notes that play through this act. And like the strains of a sinister violin, they will only grow darker as we proceed." And so ends this chapter of our journey into Macbeth, seen through the eyes of Sherlock Holmes. If you enjoyed this exploration, please subscribe and share your thoughts in the comments. Your reflections make the discussion richer. And I'd love to hear what you think before we step into the next scene.